Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Spider-Verse Retrospectives, and today we're going to be continuing our discussion on the Venomized miniseries as we take a look at Venomized number 3. So, last time on Venomized! So, with the poisons attacking the Marvel Universe and infecting any superhero they can find with symbiotes, all the superheroes are pretty much just gathering together and trying to figure out ways of getting around this. On one side of things, we have Venom, Spider-Man, and the X-Men as they try and find a way to figure out how to get the symbiotes off. With the group going to Alchemax to get the symbiotes tested. Unfortunately, the tests only really confirm what they already know, that the symbiotes have been made resistant to a lot of the symbiote's standard weaknesses, so they can't be forced off. As such, as an alternative solution, the scientist that was studying them, a big guy by the name of Dr. Steve, wound up calling in a bit of extra help, namely Agent Anti-Ventum, as he is bonded with an anti-symbiote whose touch is corrosive to regular symbiotes, and the instant he pops in, well, Venom's all like, no, this is a bad idea, since after all, the poisons are just as much victims as anyone else. In the meantime, back with the poisons, they're continuing their experiments to try and force a symbiote on Cletus Cassidy so they can get Carnage on their side, but as they're doing that, they're also trying to find another person of interest that they want to recruit, namely a boy by the name of Kai Kawada, aka Kid Kaiju, who has the power to create giant monsters that do his every bidding. And well, since of course the poisons want to have big hosts, a kid like that would be a viable asset. Unfortunately for the poisons, thanks to the work of a monster hunter by the name of Elsa Bloodstone, Kid Kaiju is far away by the time they try and get him, so it looks like he's out of their reach. Well, he would be. But the thing is, Kai Kawada's a good kid, and he's dealt with the poisons before, so rather than running and hiding, he instead went to New York via a teleportation amulet, since that's where all the shit's going down, and he wants to help the heroes. And speaking of which, we see the poisons, in an attempt to draw the heroes out, have begun attacking civilians on a bridge, since, well, the people of New York are seeing all the crazy shit going down and are trying to make a run for it. And while a couple D-list superheroes try to help them, namely the superheroes D-Man and Rage, unfortunately, for their troubles, all they really get are more symbiotes, and while they are able to fend off the poisons, who in this case are Killer Thrill and a few other poison heroes, ultimately the attack does draw more of the big names to them, including Captain America, Thor, Miss Marvel, Nova, and various other heroes whose names I'm not going to list off because there are quite a few of them. But unfortunately, this is exactly what Killer Thrill and Co. wanted, and so once they're there, they immediately sick the little poisons on them, with sadly D-Man and Rage being taken, and the last issue ending with Thor being consumed and converted into a poison, which, the more I think about it, the less sense that makes, considering that Thor is a god, so wouldn't she kind of be a bit more resistant to it? I don't know, it feels weird to me. But she's a part of the poisons now, and this issue begins with her kind of toting that fact, as she's just gloating about how the poisons now have a god, and how how they all should now worship her and all that crap. Basically, she's just kind of toting it. While Captain America tries to get through to Jane underneath, saying you can fight this, the poison Thor just kind of mocks him and says, this little human couldn't even shake off her sickness. What makes you think she can shake me off? At which point she rushes at Captain America with the intent of pounding his face in with Mjolnir, but as she talks about how she'll crush his bones, destroy him, and in his weakness they'll heal him and he'll know their gratitude and blah blah blah, she drops the hammer. Why? Well, because the poison Thor isn't worthy. So yeah, what would have been a boon to the poisons is now a hindrance, and so Cap and the other heroes just immediately go on the offensive and start attacking all the other poisons, and it's just an all-out brawl. They're just going basically they're throwing everything they have at fighting the poisons, while also doing their best to try and make sure no more civilians are caught in the crossfire. Which, unfortunately, that little bit is kind of one of the reasons why the heroes can't do an immediate retreat, because while the heroes are gaining their advantage, a good chunk of them are still bonded with symbiotes, and more of them are getting bonded as well, as a little poison manages to grab a gun and ends up shooting Miss Marvel and bonding her with her own symbiote. But the thing is, even with Thor now losing her powers, she's still very much a threat, and she even manages to get to Hercules and hold him in place so that a little poison can get up to him, and even tries using its psychic tricks to make him believe he's seeing his lost love Hippolyta. Though thankfully that trick ends up failing because, well, without the hammer, the Thor transformation can't last, and so a lightning bolt ends up coming down, destroys a little poison, and ends up kind of destroying Thor, because it turns out the magic of the hammer wound up protecting Jane's human form, and so she ends up bursting out from the chest of Poison Thor, which not only kills her but also restores her back to life. So yeah, Jane's okay now, although in her human form she's still suffering from cancer. So yeah, that's not nice. Nice. And unfortunately, she doesn't really have a chance to get back to the hammer, because still all hell is breaking loose. The bridge is still covered in panicked civilians, and while the heroes are still doing their best to fend them off, it's still kind of it's still more of a two-pronged attack on the Poison's part, as not only they're going after civilians, but there's the little Poisons are still constantly targeting anyone with a symbiote. So they not only have to defend the civilians, but also have to defend themselves. So, and unfortunately, this much of all this effort into the battle is kind of taking it out of them, and it's becoming clear that they're probably not going to be able to walk away from this. But, of course, since they're superheroes, they're not backing down either, and they're not planning to abandon anyone either, and they're not planning to abandon anyone. What I especially love is that while Captain America never gets a symbiote here, he does at least say, I'm not abandoning any of my friends. So, again, nice little show to show that Captain America is still Captain America. But thankfully, help does come from an unexpected place, as while everyone's running, these bug monsters just kind of fly out of the air and start grabbing people and bringing them back to the city. And the reason for that? Kid Kaiju has decided to come in, and he's come with his own band of merry monsters, including with the bugs actually coming from this big bug monster known as the Awful Scrag. Who, what I love about Scrag's dialogue is that he kind of screams everything, and it sounds threatening, but everything he's saying is just beneficial. It's like, scream as you feel the loving embrace of safety. The mighty Scrag demands that you all live long and happy lives. Eat your vegetables. Call your mothers. It's, I don't know. I love that. I kind of like that bit of inversion. But the thing is, yeah, basically, Kid Kaiju is able to turn the tide a bit, since, giant monsters. He's pretty much able to just not, which, while the Poisons do try to run in and grab Kid Kaiju, the monsters are able to knock them aside, as while Killer Thrill sends Hyperion to try and get Kid Kaiju, one of his monsters, what looks like a kind of a mecha monster, ends up grabbing Hyperion and just crushes him in his hands. So, good advantage. But still, the Poisons still want Kid Kaiju, so Cap pretty much tells Kid Kaiju that they're not just going to run away while he helps the civilians. Either they all run away, either they all leave, or they all stay. There's no in between. But thankfully, Kid Kaiju does have a solution for that too. After all, he does have a teleportation amulet, so he can send everyone wherever he wants. So, good call on that part. In the meantime, kind of going back into the city, while all hell is still breaking loose with all the heroes there too, as they're all still trying to fend off any Poisons they encounter. And going off of that, back at Alchemax, Spider-Man and Venom are still arguing, as Spidey is still kind of going for the whole sick anti-venom on any of the symbiotes. And Venom, of course, is just getting on Spider-Man's case, because, again, the symbiotes are just as much victims in this as the heroes, so he doesn't want to just let them get caught in the crossfire. However, Dr. Steve does offer another alternative solution. While there's still hesitation of using Agent Anti-Venom to just outright kill the symbiotes, there's still the matter of they could also potentially go after the Poisons. Because after all, it's the Poisons who are the ones that genetically modified the symbiotes. So maybe, just maybe, if they can find out where the Poisons' home base is, so to speak, and then likewise go there, they might be able to take the Poisons down right at the source. And with Agent Anti-Venom and his anti-symbiote abilities, he might be able to be a viable asset against the Poisons, since a part of the reason they get their upgrades is because they forcibly take a symbiote and absorb a symbiote into themselves and just augment their own abilities based on whatever symbiote they take. So, in other words, but the thing is, though, they still need a poison. After all, poisons are very much. They don't have the information. They needed someone to interrogate. So the best option is to try and find wherever Poisons are and grab them. And Venom, seeing all the various television screens that are in the lab, ends up seeing all the carnage going outside, and immediately realizes they have to jump into action, as he sees that one of the heroes that's going in and fighting the Poisons is Lunella Lafayette, aka Moon Girl, who you might know from the Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur from the Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur cartoon. And just like in the cartoon, in the comics version is working alongside Devil Dinosaur, and they're fending off the Poisons. But Yeah, that quickly doesn't go well as as first chance the poisons get, they end up shooting Devil Dinosaur and bonding him with a symbiote, and Poison Dinosaur is not really a good idea. So Venom immediately thinks that they need to jump into action. Although before they do, Cyclops immediately kind of convulses a little. Why? Because he can hear Jean. Yep. Yep. As Cyclops has kind of had like a little bit psychic after images of Jean ever here and there. It's clear that there's still some kind of connection there, even if it's not exactly the way it was before. And so he conveniently can sense Jean, and he realizes one thing: she's on Earth again. And yeah, kind of going back to that bridge scene, before Kid Kaiju showed up, Jean Grey did arrive on the scene, and yeah, she's still just as powerful as she was before. So yeah, that's another bummer. But yeah, with the immediate threat of the heroes outside, with the immediate threat of of Devil Dinosaur being converted, basically Venom, Spidey, and the X-Men just jump into battle and start trying to kick ass. And start just trying to kick ass, trying to fend off the poison, save lives. Though in the midst of the battle, the time displaced Wolverine by the name of Jimmy ends up getting infected with his own symbiote by the poison Punisher. However, it's here where Anti-Venom immediately goes into action, as they still need to grab a poison to interrogate, and well, it's time to see what his touch does to a poison. As he immediately runs up to the Punisher and attempts to try and get his symbiote, try and do something to his symbiote, and he grabs him, and well, the Punisher freezes up, and then lets out a scream as the bits of his symbiote inside him just start convulsing, and then he melts, like, just melts. The bits of the bony bits of his poison armor just fall to the floor, and his symbiote just turns into a puddle of goop. Yeah, when Anti-Venom sees this, he just kind of freezes up, like, wait, holy shit, there's nothing inside there. There was nothing. He just straight up killed the Punisher. It's kind of a creepy thought, but in a way it also kind of makes sense considering how they describe how the consuming works. But yeah, while that's going on as well, going back to the poison mothership with Doctor Doom and Thanos, they've been able to make more headway in Cletus Cassidy, as they have managed to finally bond him with a symbiote. And what I do like when you see Cletus is bonded with this new symbiote is that it very clearly is still Carnage. While it's not the Carnage symbiote, the way Cletus uses it is very much akin to how we use the Carnage symbiote. It has the same design, same body type, and you can tell that while they probably purged enough of the Carnage symbiote from his bloodstream to make this fusion possible, there is still clearly some bits in there that influence the transformation, because his eyes and a few markings on his body are still red. And what I like is that when Cletus finally does have the symbiote, he's pissed. And he's not pissed because they want to try and control him. No, he's pissed because this ain't his old symbiote. He can feel it, and he just wants his old one back, so he just starts slicing and dicing any poison he can come across, showing that he's still very much a threat. But the thing is, he's still bonded with a regular symbiote now, so that means that while he may be just as violent and angry as any other Carnage in the multiverse, he's now an easy target. And so while Cletus is distracted, a little poison does sneak up on him. And after this, we end up cutting back to other plot points. But then when we cut back to it, we see Doom and Thanos getting an update on how things are going on Earth, about how Kid Kaiju has been lost, but they're still trying to track him. But they're also made aware of how Anti-Venom is now on the scene, and the thing is, they've never encountered any Anti-Venom before, so they consider him a third anomaly that they'll need to take care of, since his touch is just as poisonous to, well, the poisons as it is the symbiotes, as showcased when he just killed the Punisher just by touching his head. But as this goes on, an unseen third figure arrives on the scene and says that everything will be fine, that as long as they can follow the heroes via the trackers implanted in their symbiotes, they should be able to find them. And, well, the last page of the comic reveals who this shadowy person is. Carnage, now consumed by the poisons and very much now a part of their collective, as he's chomping at the bit to get into the fight and start killing. Oh, and you want to know a little thing about Carnage here? Later on in the miniseries, they reveal that while he may be a part of the Poison Collective now, just like with Deadpool and Venomverse, his insanity protected his individuality. So Cletus still has full control of his faculties up here, It's just that he's helping the Poisons for the same reason that he helped the Venoms in Venomverse. He just wants to start killing superheroes. So, yeah, this is not good. But yeah, that's where the issue ends. Here's the thing, though. The more I talk about these comics, the more I realize that the plot really does kind of feel a little slow in some regard. Because from what I can tell, every issue so far has kind of followed a same formula. The Poisoned attack, heroes go in to fight them. And it's kind of rinse and repeat, and I've noticed that upon reading it. While progress is made in the plot as the heroes are trying to take steps to counteract the poison threat and find a way to defeat them, at the same time, you can tell that you can tell that the plot feels somewhat stagnating. Like I said, there is still progress being made plot-wise with how things are going, like with the Poisons actively pursuing Kid Kaiju, or having the heroes band together and sharing information, or like when Venom, Spidey, and the X-Men go to Alchemax to have the symbiotes tested, and then Anti-Venom is brought in, and then Anti-Venom is brought in. Hell, in this issue alone, we did get some more, there was still more progress being made. We see that Cletus is now bonded with another symbiote, and with that symbiote, they're able to the Poisons are able to consume him and bring him into their hive, and thus Carnage is now working for them. Which again I like. Which I'll give credit where it's due. I like the design for Poison Carnage too. Let me just see if I can find it. Yeah. Here's this is Poison Carnage. I like it. It's just like you can tell it's still very much Carnage with the same red outlines and the fact that he still has all the same powers and abilities he had when he had his regular symbiote. So again, looks cool. Definitely still looks dangerous and threatening. So again, there's progress being made in that regard, and again with Anti-Venom, we learn. I might have already said this. With Anti-Venom, we now see that that the heroes now have a new weapon to face the Poisons. But with Anti-Venom's reaction, it's definitely more of a kind of a horrifying realization, since all he had to do was touch the Poison Punisher, and he literally melted. So it's kind of one of those creepy factors, which kind of going off of that, it kind of makes sense why that would be the reaction when Anti-Venom touches the Punisher. As was described previously, when a poison consumes someone with a symbiote, it takes on the symbiote themselves, and part of the reason it takes on the appearance of the original host is because they consumed that specific symbiote. And as we see with symbiotes, they tend to take on the powers and abilities of whomever they're bonded to. And so part of the reason why the poison takes on the look it does is not just because they're consuming the original host for nutrition, but also taking on the symbiote themselves, as that symbiote not only improves their powers, but also gives them all the abilities and tactics of whoever it was bonded with prior to. It's kind of like when Venom bonded with it's kind of like when Eddie Brock got the Venom symbiote and knew everything about Spider-Man, because the symbiote was a part of Spider-Man's life, so of course it knew everything about him, so then likewise Eddie knows everything about him. And so it's the same case with the Poisons. Whenever they absorb someone and take their symbiote, they gain all the knowledge that person in the symbiote had, and then it also becomes a part of their collective, and since each individual drone consumes specific people, they have access to those specific skills and knowledge. So again, it kind of makes sense why that would be the case, but it also is kind of creepy to have it more confirmed with Poison Punisher's death when he melts, as it showcases that ultimately at the end of the day, there is nothing inside there. That really is just the poison and the symbiote. It's very much creepy. Although, again, if I have to give a bit of crap to it, I also have to say one thing. At the end I mentioned the whole Thor thing. I mentioned before, let's put aside the whole Thor may potentially have been immune to the poisons thing because she's a god. That same token, last issue kind of ended with a big cliffhanger with seeing Thor be consumed by the poisons. But the crap that I'm kind of gonna get to on this is that, well, she was it did nothing. It really was just there as a shock and awe moment, because immediately after Thor is consumed by the poisons, well, she drops Mjolnir because Poison Thor is not worthy of it. Of course she's not worthy of it. She wants to hunt and kill superheroes in order to make her kind look stronger, be better, be the apex predators and all that crap, which doesn't really sound very heroic and very much does not sound like Thor. So I can understand why she would immediately have dropped Mjolnir, but it also feels hollow. it feels like that ultimately all that having Poison Thor there for was just for a shock and awe moment, because immediately after she's turned, she loses her powers, and then and shortly after that she's transformed back into Jane, who's back to normal and has no superpowers. So at that point the Poisons don't want her anymore. So at the very least, I'm glad to see her okay, until she dies, because the story apparently takes place before the death of the Mighty Thor storyline. But at the very least, well, I'm glad that the magic of the hammer protected her. By that same token, it feels kind of cheap that they had this big shock and awe moment in there, but ultimately it didn't really matter towards anything. So yeah, I'm gonna kind of consider that a flaw. But otherwise, I don't know. Again, if I have to give in more crap to the miniseries, sadly, I think one thing is, while progress is being made each issue, every issue we've seen so far just kind of follows the same trends. It's poisons attack someplace, the heroes go in to fight them. Some get anyone. Any heroes not infected with a symbiote get infected with one. Poisons try going after them. Maybe one or two get converted, and rinse and repeat. It's basically just kind of that same trend over and over. And in the beginning, it kind of worked, but to kind of just see it happening over and over again, it eventually just kind of starts getting dull. And again, the action is still not bad. It is still cool. And I do like seeing the group start growing together. As seeing Kid Kaiju enter the fray and offer his assistance to the heroes, it's nice. I like that. I admit I did kind of like it when his monsters came in, and I still love how the mighty Scrag talked and all that. It was fun. But if I have to while I will say, while I still enjoy the comic, I think it's fine. In terms of plot, it feels like it just kind of stagnates. Like, while some progress is made here and there, like with bringing in Anti-Venom and having Carnage become a part of the Poisons, sadly at the end of the day, well, not just them, also kind of another bit of plot progression that I forgot. Like I mentioned, they're now planning to go to the Poison Mothership, and they need to need to grab a poison. So again, that's three things: Poison Carnage, Agent Anti-Venom being brought into the fray and learning how he affects the poisons, and them setting up a plan to take the fight directly to the Poison's home base. That at least is more plot progression. But the majority of the book is still just poisons attack, heroes fight, and it's just kind of rinse and repeat from the previous two issues. So yeah, I am gonna still kind of call that a problem. Do I hate the book though? No, it's still fine. It just feels like it's kind of stagnating in a few regards here and there. Not awful, but noticeable in some regards. So while I do say I like the book, I am also noticing that plot progression is kind of moving slowly. So yeah. That's really all I have to say. It's, again, not bad book, just feels stagnating in some regards. So yeah, I think that's really all I can say for now. Again, apologies if this sounds like I'm being angry at the book. I'm not. I still enjoy it. It's just that when I'm starting to analyze it more, I'm starting to see more of the holes in the story, and as a result, it is starting to maybe kind of rethink a few things. Again, don't hate it. Still enjoying so far. It's just I noticed some things really could have done. I'm just noticing things could have been done better. So that's all I can say. So yeah, I hope I didn't piss you off. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you on Tuesday when we look at the next issue, and hopefully see some more plot progression occur. So till then, I hope you have a good Saturday, and as always, take care.